a scion of many worlds. On the dawn of fourth day, Jasper nods to himself. The city had been swept 3 more times, and all information told him that every defense has been compromised, every slave has been liberated, and the final moments of the slaver empire's capital was approaching fast. There had been an outright panic at the rising of the sun. For what else could the terrible slave masters do but panic when they woke to find all their slaves were simply gone? Some of the more distinctive former slaves had joined his troops on the wall to taunt their former oppressors. Jasper had kept that to a minimum, quoting both winning with dignity and the very real fact that the women weren't soldiers and didn't know how to work within his armies, and by the time any of them could get that sort of training, it would be all over. And over it soon would be. He had been stalling for multiple reasons. Civilian rescue and tightening his grip on the city were parts of it, yes. But there was another portion he had mostly kept to himself, just in case there was some trick he missed and someone was turning traitor for some reason. The relief fleet was much, much closer. Perhaps 2 days away at this point. He had requested people run the numbers, calculate what they would need to start teleporting in reinforcements. They were now in range to send in direct backup. Not little trinkets and communications, but full-on soldiers in power armor. The sort of thing that can and will turn a battle on this world. To be fair, it would turn a battle on pretty much any world that doesn't have a significant Canador population. Titan Squad had used the big beasts for their standard of measurement, so being just as strong and powerful as one, and in their best armor did mean that you were theoretically only drawing up equal to one. Theoretically, in practice, the sheer insane level of determination and brutal pragmatism that was highly encouraged in the Undaunted would turn around most battles. Hell, it had turned this whole planet around. One man in a weak, untested and untried body they were unfamiliar with should have been gristle between the teeth of a worldly predator, easy meat by all accounts. But unflagging will and a penchant for violence and improv had seen him through. Still, time for a show. The trap is fully primed and set. The bitch is still inside the city and has been within tens of meters of himself at times. He knows she's pacing, trying to figure out his own game as he tracked her. Her immediate presence might not be visible, she's cloaked that. But the cloak breaking down as she moves makes a distinct energy signature that he's now so familiar with he can follow her trail through the city. And wherever the trail ends, that's where she is. She's cloaked herself from every sense he has, but as an inherently selfish person, she only considered her direct self. He knows who she's talked to. He knows what she's been eating, where she's been sleeping, and the places she's been pacing in frustration and ranting to herself. She had tried to escape a few times, but the wall was more than a physical barrier. It was attuned very specifically to certain frequencies. It provided a barrier going straight up and down. The only way out was to have some level of knowledge of warp theory and how teleportation actually works beyond the crude basics. She clearly didn't. Otherwise, she would have left already. Time for the show to start then. Allies are in range, army assembled, enemy trapped like a fly under glass. By all rights, it looks locked down and done. All right, time to figure out exactly how this goes wrong. He throws himself upwards into the air and then lands on the edge of the wall facing the heart of the city. Slavers of this wretched empire, your day of woe has arrived. There's outright panic in the city and a huge amount of movement. For centuries, you and yours have brought pain and sorrow to this world for your own benefit. For centuries, you have used assassination, mutilation, and violation to ensure dominance. That is now over. He swats an arrow out of the air and a thundering crash follows after. A supersonic arrow. Not bad, but not good enough. No amount of bows or blades can save you. No. There is a blast and his claw snaps out again. He has once more caught a cannonball. He's even less moved than the first time. A useless effort. Even if by some dark miracle you were to strike me down, you are already upon the brink of destruction. He lets the ball drop, and it's not until it hits the ground that he starts speaking again. The entirety of your wretched, squalid monument to cruelty and stupidity will be destroyed this day, and there is only one way to endure past its destruction. Drop your weapons, drop your armor, and walk away. Approach the walls and place your hands upon it. Your lives will then be spared. All others will die with the city as I... An enormous blast of darkness tinged with the other direction rises upwards, and there is a figure in the shadowy smoke. Jasper is actually kind of relieved. He was starting to think he had made a mistake in his profile of the shadow. It's good to know that all he did was underestimate her patience by a small amount. And the shadow rises. I want you to know, I want all of you to know that everything that has happened here, everything this city is about to endure, everything that will now lay it low, is because you brought me here. You and your unimaginable cruelty to the souls of others, your depravity. A whipcord of darkness erupts to slam at him, and he outright catches it in his claw. Weaker than you thought, wasn't it? I've had more than your prisoners released. I've had your runes and ritual circles disrupted. This city will fall. You've bored a tunnel under the city. The shadow's voice lashes out no louder than a whisper, but easily heard over everything. You hold my entire city as hostage against me in order to force compliance. Yes, surrender, or the entire city falls to its doom. Those that survive the fall will have the ocean pour down upon them, and what few survive to reach the surface will find me and my forces waiting with knives out. Jasper calls out, and there is an outright panic in the city. They're worth more dead than alive. The shadow screams out and gathers energy. Jasper starts to move, rushing to intercept. But he was too late the moment she began. The city pulses with shadow, and with an almighty crack, the trap is trigged prematurely, and hundreds upon thousands of souls fall to their doom. His thrust is aimed right at her heart, and the sheer concussive weight of it blows back the shadow-infused smoke to reveal that the fire Araminta body she's stolen has its skin ash gray and the hair has turned a ghostly green. Poor foolish Earthani, so idealistic and sure, so very, very easy to fool and manipulate, she says, and as he tries to pull away, she grabs his blade. He abandons it, and before he can dip back, she's already shifted it into a proper grip and is on the attack. Those pathetic worms were never more than cheap copies, useful only in what they provide. Worthless, stupid, blunted, pointless lives, given purpose by me. He forces back the sword and lashes out with a foot to force her to flinch. A twist and a flourish of his own blade causes her to lose her grip, and he has them both once more. Too late, she says, just before the unholy cacophony below begins. He can feel her pulling on tethers in the other direction. They're all dead. He reaches into the other direction to cut at the tethers, but is met with a blast of fire he's forced to ward off that suddenly turns so cold that his swords are suddenly weighed down with ice. You faced nothing but a puppet before, but I knew in your arrogance you would come, so I have fully embodied this vessel. Poor foolish Urthani, mighty though you may be, male though you may be, you are still just a child facing off against your betters. His left sword outright shatters against a field as he drives it into her collar, and even though the metal imbued with his own axiom, then warps past the field to try and lacerate the woman, it merely catches on her clothing. Tell me, how did you get here? I checked the survival pods myself. There wasn't a single stasis chamber that wasn't compromised. Every single man died during the crash. So did most of the doctors and scientists too. Did they get lucky with you? Some experiment that accidentally created a Y chromosome? Are you the big, bad plan of the grand midwives gone violent? You're first generation. You were at the crash. Oh, gold star, little boy. Well spotted. I felt it. Way back then, way back when, she says, pushing on him as she pulls on the souls of others. They're gathering into her now, and every reach into the other direction makes him feel like his metaphorical claws are about to shatter. It's like trying to break down a brick wall with a glass hammer. Chunks of the shattered city are rising up, even as the sea pours into the gaping wound in the landscape. His masterstroke had been completely turned against him, and his enemy was revealing levels of power, skill, and knowledge well beyond his expectations. The situation was officially fewbar. There is a pulse of sheer power, and he's driven back in midair. His other sword ripped from his grip, and he's forced to catch it as the same force wields it with a deftness he can barely understand. The sword shatters against his enhanced claws, and his armor takes the majority of the impact from the shrapnel. But purple blood starts leaking where several shards get between the chinks. You had the first round with my toy ship, but now I'm here. Now I'm upset. Now I am. A blast of purest light lances out of the distance, and there is a gigantic explosion with the shadow at the heart. Situation's officially fucked. He's in so far over his head there's no bucking light left. Prep teleportation chambers. I'm going in. Send the rest of Titan Squad when ready. Horus orders as he rushes through the ship. It's a good thing he had been doing some last-minute adjustments to his armor when things had started going down. Otherwise, he wouldn't be ready at all. Get me an anti-ship Gracer cannon on the double and crunch those numbers. It's go time. The helmet of his power armor rises up and assembles around his head before sealing itself, and he doesn't even miss a step as his vision shifts from normal to the visual readouts of dozens of pieces of equipment. Turn, corner, pick up the war crime cannon twice the size of a regular human being and weighing in at more than most cars. Run, enter teleportation chamber and get ready in the center of the 5 posts. The teleportation adepts are right on his heels, and it's still too fucking long in these precious few seconds where the situation is going from under control to totally fucked. Then he has a whim, and he opens his comm, all the way and on every channel. Dr. Morgana Skitterway, I know you're listening. I know you've hacked our ship and are observing, and I know you see the danger Jasper is facing. He says into the open mic, and the adepts pause for a moment. He gestures for them to keep going. I know you're not convinced that he's your Emmanuel. I know you've run the numbers 1,000,000 times and still can't figure out how or why. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter. Whether he turns out to be a complete stranger pulling a ruse, or if it's your son returned from the dead, you will never be able to live with yourself again if you do nothing. Losing your son broke you. Abandoning him in his hour of need will destroy you. It is insane, it is absurd, it is illogical and unreasonable. And it is exactly what is going on. It is what you have to do. Because the galaxy doesn't play fair, it doesn't play by any real rules, and because you need to do this beyond anything else. I will see you on Lacron. Be ready for war. Energizing, one of the teleportation adepts states as he goes from feeding Axiom into a specially built totem the size of a totem pole to outright directing the shot based on the mathematical readouts on his visor. Reality itself kicks Horus right in the everything as the world shifts. He's suddenly about a kilometer above some mountain, and in seconds he slams into it. Inertial dampening made it as soft as stepping out of bed, and he sweeps the area. There, 28 kilometers distance. The zoom brings his sight right up to it. Jasper is already losing the fight. Horus preps and charges the gamma radiation ground to orbit laser cannon, sights the shadow right in her stolen face, and fires. Direct hit.